Good evening. Today is the 9th day of January 2017, and our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our brother Alok. We are now on page 186, some lines down. And it's a very interesting section that we're getting into, because we would hope that some of it might be on Earth.
It does take place. So each world, actually everything is there in every world because the divine is in everywhere. But the worlds are categorized based on what is put forward as the predominant governing energy. That's how we have this gradation of worlds. They're not cut off from each other, they are not that way exclusive. The divine is everywhere and therefore everything is everywhere. So just as in material world, the life energy and the mind movements, even the soul states become largely subordinate to the material phenomena or material reality. And it's with great effort that they can liberate themselves from the clutch of matter. That's why when we have fever, unless one has really gone a little on the path or is born some kind of blessed, it's very difficult to keep the mind focused, concentrated, because the mind tends to be affected by the fever, which is very strange. And that's why material scientists will tell us that consciousness, spirituality, they are all nothing but epiphenomena. They are a result of material activity. But those who have gone far, they know that it's completely independent. We can make our mind completely independent of matter. Even on deathbed, the mind can remain separated, clear in its, though unable to express unless the material instruments are still working. The spirit, of course, can be completely independent. But initially, that is how it appears. It takes a lot of effort to disengage them. This is one of the problems we know. But in the vital world, again, the predominant stress is on the vital. It is given that domain, it is the leader. And matter is subordinate, mind is subordinate, the spirit, of course, is subordinate. And the vital is allowed a free scope to do what it seeks to do. That's how this world is created. And therefore, we have this wonderful line, marvelous line, interesting line. There, matter is soul's result and not its cause. Now, it's not that, anywhere matter is the cause of the soul. Shubhendra is not trying to tell us. But it appears when we look at, it's like when we look at the sun, it looks like rising from the east and setting down into the night. That's how the law of earth operates, earthly matter. But there, the vital, in the higher vital worlds, tries to clothe itself in moods of the spirit. It tries to capture it and creates a kind of mood of the spirit. And that is how it dresses itself. Even on earth, we speak of this. Very interestingly, we have, language can be a very interesting thing to study. For instance, we say green with jealousy or envy. We say red with anger. We say yellow with fear. These are terms used. Bhai se pila pad jana. These are terms we use. Now, actually, in the vital world, these colors would change automatically the substance, vital substance, which the soul is clothed in. It would automatically change. So, there is another kind, but even on earth, something of that tries to suffuse itself into matter. And therefore, we have these phrases. I mean, whoever coined it, it looks very strange. How does it become green with jealousy? So, there is something like that which tries to take place here. And then another interesting thing, in a contrary balance to earth's truth of things. So, the laws of earth contrasted with the laws of the vital worlds. The gross weighs less, the subtle counts for more. Here, whatever is heavier, whatever is great in numbers, that is the rule. The rule is of more in quantity and more in terms of weight, any measure. But there it's not like that. The subtle is more powerful simply because it is less dense and therefore it can bring out the truths of the spirit to whatever extent, much more directly without the coverings. So what happens here, why the gross counts more? Because it impedes. Like for instance, if we have a certain emotion. Now, if the emotion is very intense, it can communicate itself to another person. Particularly if the person is receptive. It will break the walls of, or at least bypass the walls of matter and communicate itself. But still, most of the time, people can hold it inside and it never becomes evident. But in the vital world, if the substance that covers or the medium through which these things travel is subtle, you can more readily communicate. So it counts for more. And even on earth, like people who practice many of these certain martial arts, where basically they harness the vital energies, you see how the subtler the energy becomes, the more powerful it becomes. It's shown in movies, but there is a truth in it that what happens in judo or karate, you concentrate your consciousness at one point, and then even a gentle push. That's the whole basis of kung fu. And you can really give a very, very massive strike because that is the power of the vital world. That's how it operates. It has much greater energy of a very different kind, like a nuclear energy, which is inside an atom. So if you say ki, atomic energy, for instance, is so much more powerful. Now, therefore, the energy in an iron will be much more. No, it doesn't work like that. So something similar happens in the vital world, and actually it is true of the growing hierarchy. The subtler things are, the more powerful they are, till you go to the subtlest. So here Sri Aurobindo is contrasting the material world vis-a-vis the vital world. Vital world is subtle, and in that world, the subtler the energy, the subtler the consciousness, the more powerful it is, unlike earth. On inner values hangs the outer plan, of course, contrary to this world. As quivers with the thought, the expressive word, as yearns the act with the passion of the soul, this world's apparent, sensible design looks vibrant back to some interior might. Here, a king in his inner consciousness may be walking in rags. There was a very, and some of this is real. Some of these people who come endowed with some touch of the higher world, they feel that kingliness inside them. In a Hindi movie, it was shown in a very interesting way. There is a boy who, because of circumstances, has to clean up the shoes of others. So this movie was a big hit. It was a starting point for Amitabh the Great. And so a person who is a mafia don comes to get his shoes cleaned, and he throws the money. And this man says, "I don't take money which you throw." So, a cobbler or a man who is a shoe cleaner doesn't talk like this. But there is in his consciousness the making of a king. He, in his inner consciousness, is like that, though he's trapped in a body and circumstances which are very different. And so the man observes it and says, he will go very far in his life because, he has seen that truth, that he is endowed with something of the higher vital worlds and he is bound to, and his life actually follows that curve. Either a place in heaven or a pit in hell. But he is born to rule. So that's how this world operates. A mind not limited by external sense. So earthly senses, now here there is a whole again, how are these senses born? So if we look at from the point of view of the Upanishads, the senses originate in the supramental world itself. But the supramental sense is of very different character. Being in one station, you can be everywhere. You can experience the essence of everything. That's how the supramental sense operates. That's how the divine plays with this world of multiplicity. In the mind, it begins to already we see the first layers of division. Certain things, certain poises you can sense, certain things, certain poises you cannot. Then it comes in the vital. The senses are still freer and they can pick up things. What, people who live in the vital, they say, I can feel the vibrations. They very often mistake it for spiritual. But it's not spiritual. It's just the vital world where you can pick up certain vibrations. And as we grow in a life, we become sensitive to certain vibrations. Even sometimes the other person is not aware. You can throw vibrations and feel that you have not done anything, but you have thrown the vibrations. So the vital world operates like that. A mind not limited by external sense gave figures to the spirit's imponderables. The world's impacts without channels registered. Here we have these channels. In the vital world, it comes directly. That's what. Intense vital movements can be felt directly. And turned into the body's concrete thrill, the vivid workings of a bodiless force. So, without touch, without sight, without hearing, one can feel and know by a more intimate sense. It is not yet the highest spiritual sense. It is the beginning of that. That's how Sri Aurobindo would describe. And yet there is a separation. But still there is a certain degree of interchange. So when people become awake to the higher world, higher vital world, they suddenly feel many things are alive and they can communicate with it. And they're quite right. Though the person totally entrenched in the material world would find all these fantasies. And those who are in the higher spiritual world would say that go further. But there is a state in which we can become alive to things which appear like dead because there is a direct communication. Powers here subliminal that act unseen or in ambush crouch waiting behind the wall came out in front uncovering their face. Powers here subliminal. So here also we have unconscious interchanges. Today only I was having this example with someone that look, if you go to a marketplace and you have gone just to give company to a friend and you will end up suddenly feeling a desire to buy something. It's not that you had planned and you think that it's just one of those things which came to you, but it didn't come to you. It just came from the world around, because everywhere there is desire. There is a cry. That's how the whole advertisement world operates. You see something on a TV screen, you see something on the computer, and it's already entered. And it acts unseen. And it moves us to end up buying something. Because that's how the whole vital world is built like that. So it operates like that. And that's why Mother says you should be so careful of the company you keep. She speaks about vital interchange, which people think is love. But it's not love. It's just two emotions feeding upon each other. And each making the other feel fulfilled. But alas, or thankfully, momentarily. Alas, because that's a fact. Thankfully, because otherwise man would never escape from that. So you begin to become aware that, and that's how this world operates. The occult grew there covert. The obvious kept overt.
Overt.
Thank you. The occult grew there overt. What was hidden suddenly became clear and obvious. The obvious kept a covert turn and shouldered the unknown. But there is still something which remains hidden. And deliberately hidden. Look what Sri Aurobindo says, something very interesting. The obvious. The vital world can color the very obvious. And that's how when the illusions break, then people realize, oh my God, I was trapped in an illusion. So there is a screen put on the obvious. And there is something which was hidden, which has come to the surface. And one is caught in that. And then it colors everything. It's a whole play of vital world. The unseen was felt and jostled visible shapes. And how these beings of the vital world were interacting, what was their language, their mode of communication, now that is being described. In the communion of two meeting minds, thought looked at thought, and had no need of speech. Many of these phenomena we'll see. Neo spiritualists, they believe that it's something spiritual. It's still vital. Look at this phenomena so closely imitating the spiritual communion and contact. And we'll see what is the difference. It'll come later.
Yes, and it's very interesting because,
You
as
don't
I
need
said
thoughts to
before,
communicate.
you feel that we should have more of this on Earth.
Yes.
But from a higher plane.
Yes, but there is something which is missing, and that Sri Aurobindo will bring out.
And he
And
does
that's
it
why
in one line. He does
one
it.
line. So we have to be so careful when we enter into this world. It's very easy to mistake, and that's why some of these classic cases of vital interchange are mistaken for love, because people feel we understand each other's thoughts, we spontaneously respond to each other's feelings, yet it is not love, because there is still the ego. It's still not a movement of self-giving. We'll come to that a little later. Let's not spoil the fun of the vital world. Emotion, clasped emotion into hearts. What else would one need? They felt each other's thrill in the flesh and nerves, or melted each in each and grew immense. So, two beings, when they are caught up in this web of vital world, they end up momentarily giving great joy and satisfaction to each other. And they really feel fulfilled that, yes, that's it, we have found. But as I said, thankfully, the illusion must break. And if one is very fortunate, the illusion breaks. But one can never be cautious enough. Or melted each in each and grew immense, as when two houses burn and fire joins fire. At the same time, there is an intensity of the contrary movement also. Hate grappled hate, and love broke in on love. This is one sign of this kind of love, The people who are intensely love each. I have seen this in my practice, that two people who loved each other like anything, passionately, ended up hating each other with equal amount of vehemence. And you wonder that how is it possible? If you ever loved anyone, how can you hate? But well, the hate is equally intense, equally passionate. And there are famous films built on that. Because to start with, and this vital world is so charming, it looks like there can be nothing better than that. That's how it operates. Will wrestled with will on mind's invisible ground. So there is a tug of war. My will, that's how the vital operates. And it overpowers. And another will which overpowers. They join together, they fuse. So you see, all this happening in the phenomena of nature, in the domain of nature. Others, sensations passing through like waves, left quivering the subtle body's frame. Those who are
body.
Yes, those who are conscious of the subtle body can actually feel the emotions of others and, the feelings, the sensations. Their anger rushed galloping in brute attack. Sri Aurobindo describes this, because as we enter into the cosmic consciousness, we have to pass through this world. And Sri Aurobindo gives that example when, in the early stages, how he actually felt the anger of, somebody come and enter into him. And that's why the Gita very interestingly says one of the signs of the Siddha, the realized man, is that he becomes a sea into which the rivers pour, but they don't create a ripple. Because you have to pass through this stage. Things will come into you and you will experience them because you are no more a small little individual ego. But at the same time, you are so vast that they come, they sink, they find their place or, are transmuted. Divine would do that. But you are not blown by them. So this is the difficult part. A charge of trampling hooves on shaken soil. One felt another's grief invade the breast. Another's joy exulting ran through the blood. So we can see how, dangerous and how fascinating this world can be, how charming when the joy invades joy, and when the grief moves grief, the heart. And what is called as pity, it's something very nice. And yet, if one is carried away by that, one stays there, doesn't go further. Hearts could draw close through distance, voices near that spoke upon the shore of alien seas. That means one may be in America and another in India. Alien seas. And yet one suddenly feels what in modern language is called strong connect. I feel a strong connection with you. Heart to heart. So from the other side also, yes, exactly. There is a strong connect. And they come all the way to meet maybe somewhere in midpoint in United Arab Emirates, thinking that life would be happily hereafter. But as I said, alas and thanks, the illusion breaks. There beat a throb of living interchange, felt being even when afar, and consciousness replied to consciousness. Now comes one of those Sri Aurobindos. Many of these one-liners of Sri Aurobindo are like, somebody who is listening to all kinds of disputes, arguments, everything. And then he says one line and it stills everything.
Yes.
It makes everything quiet. That one line is, and yet the ultimate oneness was not there.
There it is.
This ultimate oneness is not between 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. It transcends the ego sense. It's not even confined to humanity. It extends to animals, birds, beasts, plants, stone, and much more. It's a oneness based on the divine presence. As long as it is between 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, we can be sure it's the play of the vital. As simple as that. Yes, there would be personal relation based on the inner truth, but that's a different thing. For the moment, we should leave that apart. So here comes.
Oh, we're only in Canto 6.
Yes, we are only in Canto 6. That's right. And Sri Aurobindo is showing us bare realities. As I said, one-liner. There are so many instances. And mother says, laughing, how many times you are told that all this you talk about human love is basically vital passion, vital interchange. He says, but it's no point. Anybody who is caught in it says, no, mine is a different case. And then she says, that person's case is always a different case. Somebody else, yes, by and large people are caught, but mine is a spiritual thing. So people would often someone asks Sri Aurobindo, is a Shakti necessary for the supramental yoga? Trying to, Sri Aurobindo says, is it an application to get married? In that case, he says, my answer is no. He says, you don't need a Shakti for transformation. And then he gives the basis of transformation. Then he says his own case, because he knows the disciple is trying to take that example to make a cue that, Shakti is needed. Look, Sri Aurobindo has his Shakti. So we all need our Shaktis. Vital world can play a lot. And Sri Aurobindo says, you sound like it's an application for marriage. I mean, one goes through things, but one should know what is what. That's all, one should have the eyes awake and not be fooled and tricked. There was a separateness of soul from soul. That is the catch.
Yeah.
Other day, there was very interesting conversations. Someone was, discussing about love. And the person says something very beautiful. The person said, that, look, if there is really love, there is no need even to communicate. It's there. It's a fact of your soul. It's a reality. It's there inside. There's no suffering, pain, and all these emotions that you... And I said, yeah, it's a profound truth. That if it is really there, it's there. It's no one can stop it. It's a peak to which human consciousness can rise. You don't even need to speak about it. And no wonder such a love would be regarded as cold, distant, afar. The thing is, vital world can even imitate it, but not for long, because after a while the illusion breaks. But well, soul to soul, the aspiration of the soul, that is not the same. It's something very different. That is very carefully colored and covered. An inner wall of silence could be built. So he is giving us a clue that when we pass through it, when we get entangled into it, then what we should do, build an inner wall of silence. Later on, Mother and Shubindu gave a very simple method. Said, Mother would say, put me in between you and the person. In fact, she asked the disciple that, do you know how to put me between you and the person? Because he was very prone. I mean, you would know which disciple I'm speaking of. He was very prone to, vibrations from here, there, would feel it very intensely. And then Mother said, do you know how to put me between you and the person? And then she says, whenever this happens, put me in between. I have had a real example as a doctor when somebody would come and I would feel that energy is being drained from everywhere. I didn't know what to do because I was caught between a occult yogic truth and my needs of my profession. So I wanted to hand over the case to another person. I said, this is the simplest way out. And my professor said, no, you are one of our, capable persons in the team and you can't do this. I didn't tell him the reason because that professor was not tuned to yogic truths. So I said, what to do? And I tried everything. I would invoke Mother's presence before and I would, do it later. Then one day, while the person was seated across, then I was just holding Mother's picture in the hand, and I just turned it like this. No, without any conscious
Not
thought.
consciously.
And I could actually feel the whole energy thing getting cut off. I had read this much later in the agenda when Mother says that put me, and this was something very material, just a photograph, a picture. So I realized that how much more powerful it would be if we could build that kind of wall or a wall of silence. Here Shubinda speaks of a wall of silence which nothing can penetrate. An armor of conscious might protect and shield. The being could be closed in and solitary. One could remain apart in self alone. This is the thing we have to do, and this is what is there in these domains, that still the soul to soul union is not yet there. Though it's used soulmate, but it's not exactly that. Identity was not yet, nor union's peace. And this is the sign.
There it is. Yeah.
If there is really a true union, there will be peace. Nothing is required. You are sure of it. It's like you don't keep on looking at your hand and say, oh, you are mine, no. You are with me, no. It's your hand. The hand would say, are you sure? It's absurdity because it's there with you. So in that state of oneness, the whole creation you feel like that. There is nothing like, but because this union is not there, the peace is not there. There is always restlessness. There is always insecurity. But when there is the soul to soul union, there is that stability, there is that peace, which no distance, no time can separate. Because it's the soul union. All was imperfect still, half known, half done. So it's a halfway home of the spirit, as we have seen. The miracle of inconscience overpast, the miracle of the superconscious still, unknown, self-wrapped, unfelt, unknowable. Look down on them, origin of all they were, on the beings of the vital world. Them are the beings of the vital world. So they had overpassed the strong grip of inconscience, which is there in the material world. But they were not yet in the know-how of the superconscious worlds, which look down upon them, As forms they came of the formless infinite, as names lived of a nameless eternity. That's why we see even these gods quarrel. It's not their fault, it's their station of consciousness. They are caught in the vital world. Many of these gods are in the vital world. They fight, not, I was going to say like human beings, but some of them worse than human beings because they have so much power which can do so much damage.
He uses the phrase quarrel of the gods.
Quarrel of the gods, yes. When the self is found in
Yes.
Book 1, Canto 3,
Yes.
when the soul's release comes from ignorance, you enter that state where the quarrel of the gods is stilled. The beginning and the end were there occult. A middle term worked unexplained, abrupt. They were words that spoke to a vast, wordless truth. They were figures crowding an unfinished sum, always more and more and more and more. And yet it never ended. It looked like it's going to end, that's it. But the moment you put that little extra, again, the emptiness, the vacant space. None truly knew himself or knew the world, or the reality living there enshrined. Only they knew what mind could take and build out of the secret supermind's huge store. So this world now, Sri Aurobindo has placed it, is below the mind, and the mind draws from supermind, passes it on to the vital world. World gives it all kinds of forms, hues, names, and all kinds of powers. And that's how it operates. A darkness under them, a bright void above. Uncertain they lived in a great climbing space. By mysteries, they explained a mystery. That's how. There is no perfect answer. There is no final wisdom in this world. So they discover something and then there is still greater mystery.
And yet he's progressed from the godheads of the little
Yes,
life.
yes. The little godheads of the little life we can see on the way we saw the movie being shot. The lower vital world in its full play. The higher vital world would be emperors and kings who are planning all kinds of things because they feel they are masters of earth's destiny. Or in musicians, in artists, again, the higher vital world is at play through art, in the world of art. A riddling answer met the riddle of things as he moved in this ether of ambiguous life. Himself was soon a riddle to himself. As symbols, he saw all and sought their sense. So, after a while, initially this world is very charming, captivating. Almost that, that's why many people who, in the beginning, those who are not rooted in the psychic, and that's why Sri Aurobindo and the mother insist so much that the first thing that one must do is to root oneself in the psychic. Because that is the only safe thing in the sadhana. All else is or can be dangerous in sadhana, except the psychic realization. Then one has the light through which one can see. Otherwise, many of these experiences begin to crowd. And one flows into it and starts, there we are. And, I am already having spiritual experiences. Till one reaches a point after which one says, why it's not progressing further? Why there is this block? Something is not letting one go beyond visions and voices. And that's when himself was seen a riddle to himself. One wonders.
And this is Aswapati.
He is passing through. He is understanding the whole world.
Passing through.
And so one has to be so careful and conscious. That's why you see some of these yogas avoided this trouble. Buddhist yoga and Gyan yoga avoids this trouble by simply insisting on one single question. Answer that. Who am I? Forget about all else. Because the moment you get into it, then you get into a maze. So first insist on who am I? Even Sri Aurobindo speaks of that. First find out the true being, the soul within you. Don't get caught into all these kind of experiences. I have become very sensitive to energy. Be careful. Fine, everybody grows sensitive. Nothing great about it. Dogs are sensitive to energies much more than human beings are. Cats, even rats, very sensitive creatures. But that doesn't make the snakes very sensitive. That doesn't make them yogis. So being sensitive to vibrations is all right. It's not necessarily a sign of great yoga. It simply means that one has become less earthy and more into the vital phenomena. One has to get past it. And even you will see that, when one is passing through these experiences, there'll be strong likes and dislikes. Oh, I don't like this person. And then one will give a spiritual explanation to it. But, look at Sri Aurobindo and the mother, whom they didn't embrace.
Yeah.
That vastness. You have still some more minutes, and now we have a lovely image of this world. Across the leaping springs of death and birth. That's how one sees, like waves rising and falling, rising and falling. There are many, many multiple mini worlds, mini states, mini domains in this vital world. It's intensely creative. It can create thousands and thousands of, worlds within itself, domains within itself, each fascinating, more fascinating than, any other. There are many heavens and many hells within this vital world. It has, for every small little feeling or a vibration, it creates a world. So we have leaping springs of death and birth. Things are being born and they are dying, coming and going. And over shifting borders of soul change, a hunter on the spirit's creative track, he followed in life's fine and mighty trails, pursuing her sealed, formidable delight in a perilous adventure without close. One kept pursuing that delight, and when one felt one has got it, it escaped. And then, just a little more. Again one went and felt one has got it, and it escaped. And this happens any number of times. At first, no aim appeared in these large steps. Mother has in fact used this word. She says it's a futile world. Then she explains why it has been created. Because it's a world, at least in lower vital, you are reminded of your lowness. But in this world, it's like you drift and drift and drift. And initially, it's like an aimless drifting. And later on, you have even when the aim comes and you are in the grip, it just makes you feel here, you have found it. And that's why it's so important to have a very clarity of the aim. One of the old sadhaks used to ask this when people came, why do you want to take up yoga? What really is your aspiration? It should not remain vague. It's very good to give it a very clear form. It could be to unite with the divine. It could be to serve the divine. It could be to love the divine. Because that will be a compass. And if it just I like the place, then it can easily put us into one of these tracks. Only the wide source he saw of all things here, looking towards a wider source beyond. For as she drew away from earthly lines, a tenser drag was felt from the unknown. A higher context of delivering thought drove her towards marvel and discovery. There came a high release from pettier cares, a mightier image of desire and hope, a vaster formula, a greater scene. One of its traps is that, one is a very good instrument of the divine. Spiritual life. One is a great yogi. One is, helping others, helping humanity, being of great usefulness to the divine. Divine can pick up a blade of grass and make it a powerful shaft. There is a lovely story in Ramayana where when Sita is chased by Indra's younger brother, Jayant, because he's overpowered by her beauty. It's a very symbolic story at many levels, but just one aspect of it which I want to. It's a very humbling story. And he says, I am so powerful. Who is this man? And he tries to woo Sita, saying, you are with this man, he's not worth it. You see, he has nothing with him. Not even a bow and arrow, because Rama has, kept everything. And he says, you want to be, he can't even protect you. So Sita says, go away, don't get near me. But, he insists. So she comes to Rama, and Rama at that point has nothing. And, he says, don't you know who I am? I am a god. So Rama says, so be it. He picks up a blade of grass and just throws it at him. And that blade of grass becomes such a powerful weapon that he goes to all the worlds, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. They say, none of us can protect you against this. You have to go back, surrender to the one from whom this arrow has been released. Now, divine can use any. This story has many layers of meaning, but just to say that divine can use anything as an instrument. And so if somebody has become an instrument, it is the divine's greatness. It has nothing to do with the individual. But this vital world can easily make the head off balance. So greater scene, mightier image of desire and hope. They are freed from these small aims, but they can get into these big aims. Ever she circled towards some far-off light, her signs still covered more than they revealed. But tied to some immediate sight and will, they lost their purport in the joy of use. That's why. So important to remember the aim. So important. It's the one thing which navigates us. Otherwise, we start with, that light we have to go. In between, we see many lights, lovely things, and we say, okay, let's linger for a while. Then we wonder, where is that light? Again, you find it. Again, something. And so on and so forth. Till, stripped of their infinite meaning, they became a cipher gleaming with unreal sense. Using all that is around, till ultimately all these things lose their joy and charm, and we are left with the sense sometimes of having been deceived. So one should be very careful, and all this is, I am deliberately taking this aspect of the vital world because this is where one should be very cautious. It has beautiful things, but even they can trap us. If we are not careful, we may mistake it for the real spiritual thing. That's why. Last 3 lines. Armed with a magical and haunted bow, she aimed at a target kept invisible and ever deemed remote, though always near. Beautiful this is. So circling around a light. And one is, in Buddhism, they have this way, and some of these practices are very good. That don't be distracted by any experience. Keep focused. If the goal is to unite with the divine, nothing else should deter or stop us. They come and they go. And if they come, gratitude, don't come, gratitude. But the goal is this. Of course, occult powers, they can be a total distraction. If they have to come to be used for the divine work, they will come. If they have to be taken away, they have to be taken away. Otherwise, one can really get caught up. So we'll stop here.